Hello, Burn Victim 77. This is a response to your video about pure agnosticism. First of all, I'd like to point out that my related response to Listening Griffin, in that response I was really conceding a lot of ground for the purpose of trying to throw the question back at him, because I made the assumption that he was a believer, because in the past he's made pretty aggressive and negative videos about atheism, so I naturally assumed. Apparently he claims he's not, so that was my bad assumption. But in any event, the purpose for me to concede so much ground to him was, just to, because if, just for him to have to answer the sort of position that I take itself would bring him enough along that. In any event, that's just what I was doing. So here's the problem. Atheists and agnostics are clearly different in philosophy, and you seem pretty intent on wanting to really expand on this difference here, and that's fine. But see, the problem is agnostics and atheists are natural sort of enemies of the believers, and it doesn't help that we're fighting against each other. But well, in any event, so just to clarify though, so an atheist typically arrives at his or her worldview through three paths. One is you see that there's no evidence for God, so you take the default position that there is no God. The second is that you believe that, or you observe that God is self-contradictory and thus can't be true. And the third is kind of another kind of definitional approach, but it's an important one, is that the very concept of belief or faith is itself a bankrupt intellectual process. So in other words, you can never believe or have faith in God. You can only have it proven to you as true or something like that, or not. I personally take the last two as my paths. I think God is self-contradictory, and I don't. I think belief is a bankrupt position. Most atheists, I believe, actually take the first two, or just the first one, in fact. And so there you have this concept of an atheist agnostic will very commonly just take the first path of, there is no evidence, so by default or whatever, even though they don't have proof. Okay, so and then the agnostic position is really a different thing that's very distinct from this. It says that God is literally outside the process of reason and the process of observation and the process of test. And that's a difficult position to resolve with atheists, because that's I mean, why would we put anything? See, but I'll concede that the agnostic position is of course self-consistent, but it's self-consistent by using a technique of essentially reason by black hole. That is, any question we ask you of about the existence or non-existence or anything special about God, you'll just say, oh, well, it's not addressable by definition because you say so. Okay, but the onus is still on you guys, since you take the position, if you wish to be examined, to motivate your reason for putting this up as your philosophy. Self-consistency alone is one thing, but also I have some I just have a question. If you don't believe God can be addressed at all, do you even believe that God can be well defined? So, does the agnostic position preclude the ability to define God? Just to define what it is, so that we know what we're talking about. And so there's two possibilities, or two main possibilities, I suppose. I guess you'll say, I don't know if I can't define it. All right. If so, then this conversation ends. But if you you say that you cannot define God, well then you're now in your own trap, right? So now you're saying you can't define something, which I mean, you cannot test something with, and this something in particular is something which you also cannot define. So that means the statement itself is, it doesn't have any solid underpinning, so it's not a well-defined statement. So that's a difficult position to be in, right? But since you do positively assert that you cannot know something about God, or cannot reason about God, that means you must have a definition of God then to be useful. In which case, my simple question to you is, what is that definition? Right? This, by the way, is the starting question I use in any technique in approaching sort of the disproof, or in disproving the existence of God. So, okay, the agnostic position also forces you to have a somewhat narrow position on what God could be. See, you had suggested a bunch of possibilities, like it could be a delusion, or just a super powerful alien or something like that. Well, what I'm saying is that the atheist position is that, in theory, we may have to concede that God is in fact a super powerful alien, right? As a purist kind of atheist for myself, right? I'm not an atheist as in the sense of a negative Christian. I'm an atheist in the sense of a philosophy that stands on its own. And in that sense, I have to concede that there may be good definitions of God, in theory, right? Obviously, my claim is I've applied reason and eliminated that possibility. But the starting assumption, though, or the starting framework in which we're talking about, is where we decide God could have any arbitrary manifestation, and that includes super powerful aliens. So, an all-powerful, super powerful aliens, from our point of view, sure, why not? And if you don't think that's powerful enough, or you think that's a little bit too weak for a God, whatever, there's a whole continuum from that to the all-powerful omnipotence that the believers think. The point is, as a pure atheist position, personally, I don't take the religious or the Christian position to have any meaning or value at all. So I don't, whatever God is what it is. But in any event, this is all esoteric and beyond the point, because whatever, I don't believe in any of it anyways. So and also I think I just want to clarify the whole test thing. So your position, of course, is that as an agnostic we can't test God, and what I'm saying is that's nonsense. I mean, if God is supposed to, for example, to be God, he would have to be all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, all whatever, omnipresent or omnipotent or whatever it is. Then, if it has those properties, then any entity which has those properties is examinable precisely on those properties. So if he's all-powerful, can he make us, or can he build a stone that he himself cannot lift? Okay, so there's a simple examination. Good question. And then, if he's all-loving and all-knowing, then why does he let wars happen? Basically, is the problem of evil. And so there's your standard disproofs of God, right? So, literally the agnostic position says that I can't do that, is what you're trying to say to me, and that's, then the only way that could work for me is if you're saying that these properties I'm suggesting, all-knowing, all-powerful, and so on, aren't actually properties of God. That you suggest that the properties of God are much more elusive or something, right? At which point then I come back to the question of what is your definition of God, right? And so I don't know. I don't really understand the agnostic position. So I guess balls in your court if you want to respond or do something, because I don't really got anything else. Anyways, so those are my thoughts. To be later.